the Bible is written for us in the sense that like it is meant for our instruction and for getting to know God, but it wasn't written to us.
Hello and welcome. In this episode, I actually have one of you listeners on. He messaged me and said he enjoyed my podcast and was wondering if I would like a guest on. I was like, of course, I would love to have you on. And today, my guest is Shane Wester. Together, our families grew up in China, and it's super awesome that this podcast was the key to us reconnecting and getting to chat. So this is that conversation where I break down his trips after he left China and his DTS, what he learned, and some pretty great stories that he has. And so yeah, enjoy. So let's start with the first question that I have. What are you doing now? What in life is making you come alive?
Um, Good question. I'm currently in Switzerland at a women base doing a school of biblical Christian worldview. Um, YWAM is an organization. It stands for Youth with a Mission. If you've never heard of it, check out their website. They do some really cool stuff. But that is where I'm at the moment. The school has been like super cool so far. Only like 2 weeks in, but it's blown my mind already. um, yeah, what's making me happy at the moment? I think my classmates are really cool, which I've been really enjoying getting to know them better and stuff. And I also had some cool roommates, which is good fun. I didn't have many roommates in my last school, so that kind of sucked. um, yeah, so that's really fun. I've been enjoying that. Um, the food is really nice. I think that's what's been making me happy. I've read some cool books, which I'm enjoying getting back into that as well. I haven't read a lot recently, and so that's good fun. Yeah.
So 5 years ago today, where were you and what are you doing? What did you do to get to where you are now?
5 years ago, I was in China, in the same city that you grew up in. um, yeah, I was there. I was in high school. I think I was in like 10th grade or something like that. Um, as far as what I did to get here, I mean, a lot of things. I graduated high school. It took me forever. Um, yeah, I did that. And after that, I mean, I taught English for a little bit. I, but that was kind of crazy. I taught English to like
Hmm.
300 little Chinese kids. It was insane. But they
And
paid
where
me
did you
well,
do
so
that?
uh,
That sounds awesome.
yeah, it was pretty. I mean, I don't know if fun is the right word. It was quite the experience. I did it at it was called jury school. I don't know much else about it. I mean, it's been around for a long
Hmm.
time. Um, it was like a summer intensive or something. So I had like 4 classes a day, or 5 classes
Wow,
a day, and there was like I don't know, 30, 40 kids in each class, something like that. So it was pretty crazy.
that's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Um, yeah. So I did that, and then honestly, from that point on, after that, I was kind of a little bit lost, and then I decided to do DTS, and from then on, it's just been a journey of faith. Um, I've just kind of trusting the Lord step by step. Um, it's like I like even right now, I really don't know what I'm gonna do next after this school.
Hmm.
And that's kind of what it's been like the last year and a bit.
That's awesome.
Um,
That's fun.
which is frustrating sometimes, but
Hmm.
it's also yeah, so exciting.
So I wanna hear about all the DTSs you've been on and what you learn and what stories do you want to share?
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So I did. I've done a couple schools with YWAM. They have this thing called the University of the Nations. Basically, they have a bunch of different courses that you can do. So that's what I'm doing right now. But their entry level course that everybody has to do is called a DTS. And so I did that in January of last year is when it started. I did it in Washington, in the United States, the state of Washington, not the city. State of Washington, not Washington. Um,
Yeah.
People always get confused. They're like, "Oh, cool, you went to Washington D.C." I was like, "Nope, literally the opposite side of the states." Um, yeah, but I mean, it's an incredible experience as far as like what I learned specifically in that school. I think for me, it was about making my relationship with the Lord personal. Is most of it. I think that like I've been a Christian my whole life and known that I have a relationship with the Lord, but I think it was never. I don't know. Yeah, it was never super personal, which like it's kind of funny to say like oh yeah, I knew I had a relationship, but then to say it wasn't personal. I think kind of lies the fact that maybe I didn't have like a. I think I didn't fully recognize what that meant, what having a relationship with the Lord meant. And DTS
So
really opened up that door.
what does a relationship with the Lord mean to you then?
Um, I think it's a lot about trust. I mean, that's a loaded question. There's a lot of answers to that question.
Yeah.
Um, I think as far as like what I learned, I think the main thing is really just learning to recognize his voice and the way he speaks to me. And I think that's still a journey I'm on. I think it's one that doesn't necessarily end at a certain point, and it changes through the years. But that was one of our lecture weeks during my DTS, and it opened my eyes to a lot of things. And then just learning a lot about the character and the nature of God and understanding who He is and how He's created us to be really allows you to understand the nature of your relationship with Him. But also, like, I think a lot of people struggle with, and I definitely struggled with, this discerning between your thoughts and His thoughts and, like,
Mm.
what He's speaking to you, I guess. And really, the process of, I think, learning how to discern that is learning to understand who he is and how he speaks, and you know, um, and there's so many ways to do that.
Mm.
But I think that was one of the main things, and just I think yeah, the process of it's kind of the point of DTS is to learn more about who God is and more about who you are and how those things work together, your identity in Christ, and yeah, I mean, there's a million things, but it was an incredible experience, and I think I came out the other side, just yeah, with a much richer relationship with him, with a lot of peace, and just like an ability to kind of chill out a little bit. I think before that I had been quite stressed, and the Lord gave me a lot of peace, a lot of things. I mean, I still get kind of stressed about things. I don't necessarily worry, but just like not knowing the future is sometimes a little bit scary. But I think the Lord has kind of led me on a process of letting that go to some extent, um,
That's all.
and stuff, and like being able to trust Him with that. Yeah, does that answer your question? I kind of went off on a
Yeah,
little
that's
bit of
really
a
cool. I
trail
love
there,
that.
but
No, that's so cool. So what
yeah,
stories from your DTS like were
yeah.
amazing and impactful for you?
Let's see. There's so many stories. I don't know which one to pick. I had some good friends. We went. Let me think. Something that changed my life. Here we go.
Yeah.
Um, we went to outreach in Cambodia. So a DTS is split between lecture phase and outreach phase, kind of. Like you have 2 or 3 months of lecture and then 2 or 3 months of outreach, depends on the base. So we went to Cambodia, and they have this thing in Cambodia called the fried banana, and it is the best
Ooh.
thing I have ever eaten. That might be a
Really?
little bit of an overstatement, but I was like, what? Fried bananas? That sounds so weird. And so this one day, I think we had like a day off or an afternoon off or something. And we went to, we took like a tuk-tuk or something. And we went, like, we gotta go find these fried bananas. Um, and they were like, I don't even know, like so cheap. and it was amazing. They like squash them down, and then kind of batter them, I think, and then they just deep fry them, and it's like
Wow.
heaven on earth. So that was life changing. It's just kind of a fun story, I suppose. Um,
That's so cool.
yeah, like it's maybe less of a story, but I think for me, the lecture phase is split up into weeks, and you have different speakers come each week. And one of the most impactful for me was a guy called, oh dear, um, I am blanking on his name right now, actually. But his topic for the week was called the Lordship of Jesus. Um, and it was a really good week. I learned a lot in that week. I just had like, I think for me, a lot of DTS was just putting words and ideas to a lot of like what I'd grown up with and what I'd like,
Mm.
thought about and kind of wrestled with. But he talked about like decision making and how you like listen to the Lord as far as like what He has for you, which was really cool. But also just so much about surrender. And I think that's one of those things that's a continual process. And you kind of always hear about it. A lot of people talk about surrender, but I appreciated the way he taught about it. Um, and recognizing, I think for me, the thing that was that I think when you hear surrender, sometimes it's kind of like, oh, I don't want to do that. I don't want to let go of things. It's kind of scary and frustrating in some senses. Um, but I think he helped me see the freedom that comes with it, and that when you surrender your life and whatever it is, it can be anything. So anything at different points. You don't have to worry about it anymore, and Jesus takes care of it. And so that is an incredibly freeing thing. Um, like I was worried about what I was going to do after DTS, and I was like, I'm freaking out about this kind of thing, and just like um, being able to get to the point where I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do, and that's scary,
Mm.
but I trust that the Lord has good plans for me, and um, I mean, I love the Lord so much that like whatever He
Yeah.
tells me to do, like I would do it, I guess. So getting that point just brings so much freedom because you can kind of just
Mm.
live your life, and obviously like you still have to make decisions and stuff, and it's still not necessarily always fun, but it's entirely different, and it's a little bit hard to describe. But I think that was one of the big things on my DTS was that. Um, but I think for me
That's
as
so
well,
cool.
like so just the whole thing is very like I think the way that I learn is very gradual sometimes, and that like things will layer up on each other, and so I don't know if I like noticed an immediate change for me. I did. Like I did immediate change, if you will, but like it kind of like it was at the end of my DTS, and I was like, dang, like I'm a completely different person now, which
Yeah.
is it's awesome. But yeah, I kind of drone on. I could talk about DTS forever.
That's so
um,
cool.
yeah.
So I did some digging and
Ooh.
was looking at your Instagram, and your Instagram bio says boldly do what you have never done before so that you can be
Mm,
the person you have always wanted to be.
yeah.
Why does it say that? Why that quote?
That's a good one. I like that you found that. I put that up like so long ago. I think I gotta remember like what I was thinking when I added that. I've been meaning to change it. I mean I don't disagree with it or anything. I think
Hmm.
um, doing new things, no matter what they are, is good. Um, and boldly do what you have never done before, so you can be the person that you've always wanted to be. I think it's part of like if you can if you have a vision, even if it's loose, of the person you want to become, um, and the things that you want to do, then um, it becomes a lot easier to know what you need to do. I think.
Hmm.
Um, to be entirely honest, I kind of just stuck that there, and yeah,
Hmm.
I don't necessarily live by it. which maybe I should. But
Do you remember where you heard it from? You remember where it came from?
um, yeah, I think I was reading a book by him, Chris
Yeah.
Vallotton. It would have been it's a book called Loving on Purpose, or no, that's wrong.
Mm.
It's called Keep Your Love On, which it's as an incredible book. It's really good about. It's all just about relationship, really. Relationship. I mean, there's so many senses of relationship, but mainly with other people. Well, you need other people to have relationships. I meant like just people in general, but also like romantic relationships, which is super important as well. But I think it gave me quite a bit of foundation, just also for my relationship with the Lord in some ways. Good book. I definitely would recommend reading it. It's like helpful
Would you
for any
say,
person, I think. But
yeah? Would you say Chris Vallotton has taught you something? What would you say
yeah,
on
yeah, I think
that?
so. I mean, I haven't followed along with his stuff recently, but I read that book a long time ago. I was actually just talking with my girlfriend earlier. We should read. We want to read it together at some point. But
That's cool.
I think so. Yeah, I think especially when I read it with my mentor like a million years ago.
Mm.
And it did impact me in quite a few ways. I wouldn't be able to tell you exactly how. I don't have the best of
Mm.
memories, but I think, uh, yeah, gave me good foundations for like, yeah, relationship, I guess.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Mhm.
So, what's the most surprising piece of knowledge that you could think of that not many people know?
Mhm. That is a good question. I'm not 100% sure if this is like exactly what you're looking for. But I did a Bible school
Mm.
with YWAM after, not quite after my DTS. I did a school in between, but that's another story. Um, and I think the main thing that I learned there, and it's something that, at least to me, is was not something I ever really heard about or learned about before, um, is summed up in a one-liner of um, that the Bible um, is written for us in the sense that um, like it is meant for our instruction and for getting to know God, but it wasn't written to us, which is maybe a little bit confusing. But what it opens up is the fact that many of the books of the Bible, of which there are a bunch, and they vary a lot in genre and authorship and different things, but they're all written to specific people at different times in history. Um, so, like for example, some of Paul's letters in the New Testament are written very specifically to groups of people or churches, even. Um, and the importance of that is, and this is what I learned in my Bible school, was that you have to read the Bible through the lens of other people. And so, like, you have to understand who it was written to understand the intent behind the words. Because
Mm.
it can be really easy to read things in the Bible, especially out of context. That's the other thing. It's like context is super important in the Bible. You read things out of context, um, and you can get real confused and have some funky ideas. Like the example, which is kind of it's a little bit of an obvious example, but like a lot of the laws in the Old Testament are like people, there's debate on whether or not we should follow them or not. Um, but like, for example, like that we shouldn't eat like uh, certain animals and stuff. And if you study the original reader, the person who it was written to, who read it first, or who it was read to, more likely, um, you begin to understand why that was a rule, and stuff like that. And then it helps you to see that the intent behind that law was um, to set apart the Israelites, that they would be different than the other nations around them, and through that bring glory to God. And there's a lot of ramifications to that, but you see that, and so then um, for us in this, like in our context now, um, the rule is not so much don't eat pigs or whatever, but more that um, and the New Testament echoes this in many places, but the it's not even a law, I suppose, but like the intent behind it is more that we are to be holy, we're supposed to be set apart and to act differently, to look differently. And that law for the people at that time was just a very specific way that they were supposed to do that. And there's like a whole bunch more there, but I think that's a pretty good example uh, of a situation where if you read that out of context and think that like we we believe the Bible is true and that we're supposed to follow what it says, there's a whole bunch of really weird rules in there that don't really make a whole bunch of sense if you think about
Mm.
it. But then when you go and understand who it was written to and what the intent of the writing was, um, it opens up a lot. And I mean, you can literally do that for every single book in the Bible. And throughout my
Yeah.
Bible school, yeah, it just continued to blow up my mind. But I think it's cool that the whole idea, in some ways, obviously I had to explain it a little bit, is summed up in um, that sentence of the Bible is written for us, but not to us.
That's really amazing. That's so cool.
Mm.
What do you feel like you have mastered, and what do you feel like you're still learning?
Yeah. I don't think I've mastered anything, to be
Yeah.
entirely honest. Um, what am I really good at? I am pretty decent at rollerblading, I would say. But like other than that, it depends on how far you go with mastery. The technical definition, I think, is that you've spent like 10,000 hours doing something. And
Yeah. I've heard that.
I don't think that there's anything that I've spent that much time on, except for maybe reading, but even that, I doubt it. Um,
Hmm.
yeah. So I think, yeah, I don't think I've mastered anything. I think I'm good at some things. Um, I don't know. I'm good at talking to people, I think, and good at listening. I think that's something that maybe I definitely haven't mastered it, but
Hmm.
I would I'd like to be able to say that I'm good at listening to people and like having meaningful conversation.
Yeah.
Um, what was the second part of that question?
What do you feel like you're still learning?
Yeah, everything. um, a lot of things. I think the one thing that pops to my mind recently is just I've been writing a lot of poetry, and so that's like a skill I'm developing. I suppose maybe a little bit different, like something I'm learning. Um, I'm learning how to trust in the Lord more. It's a continual process.
Yeah.
Um, through the school that I'm doing now, I'm really learning to humble myself, I think, and recognize that I don't know everything. Um, and we had a speaker the other week or the other day actually, it was still this week, but um, who was telling us about the importance of being humble when it comes to we're learning about worldview and stuff, which I won't go into. It's kind of a little bit complicated, but to be able to learn anything new and to change your mind and uh, to change yourself is everything kind of starts up here, if you will. Um, in that like you need to understand something before you can apply it. To be able to learn anything new, anything meaningfully new, you have to be able to recognize that you don't know anything, or
Mm.
not like that, but also that you could be wrong, and being able and being willing to recognize that um, is super important. And so I think that's something that the Lord is taking me through at the moment. Um, I also like had the realization of that like you can't properly and truly do that sustainably without Jesus, because he renews our minds, and trying to do that on your own it doesn't work so well, because you'll always kind of in the back of the mind be like, oh, but I do know better, um, or whatever. So that's something I've been learning recently, I guess.
That's Cool.
and I'm on the process of, I guess. But yeah.
So back to the poetry thing, because I was looking at some of your Instagram posts,
Hmm.
and in the description you have some what looks to be poetry. So I wanted to ask you, like, where does that come from?
Like specifically those poems, or
Or like the why poetry? What do you get from writing it?
um, it helps me to. I'm not always the best at understanding what I'm feeling and like my emotions, and it helps me to get in touch with that. And it's kind of an outlet, if you will, of just understanding
Mhm.
like what I'm feeling, or just kind of processing things. Like I'll often write about like something that I've learned today, or that like I feel like the Lord is speaking to me about, or just like random things like, oh, I saw a bird, it was really pretty,
Mhm.
so I wrote a poem about it.
Yeah.
And I mean, I started doing it during DTS, and then kind of dropped it a little bit, but recently I've been writing a lot more. I'm trying to do one every day. Um, and yeah, it's just been a good practice for me, kind of having to take at least a little bit of time and each day to just kind of like think about my day, what I've done, what I've learned, how I've been feeling. Um, and so, in like a little bit of a weird sense, it's a little bit like journaling for me. I I've tried to journal in the past and like write like prose, if you will, um, and it's never gone super well. Uh, I don't know. I enjoy it as much, and I think there's a freedom in poetry. There's kind of no rules, and unless you put them there, like you can impose
Mhm.
different things on yourself, like you have to rhyme or whatever, which I generally don't do. It's fun to do it sometimes. You kind of have to use your brain. It's a little bit like a puzzle.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I guess that's a little bit of why I do it. I also just, yeah, I mean, it brings me joy. I enjoy creating things, and it's kind of a new way that I've started doing that. Yeah.
That's so cool. So what principles and methods do you follow in everyday life?
That is a good question.
Mm.
Something I learned on DTS and that I tried to hold to is doing a quiet time, like spending at least part of my day um, just with the Lord, either praying or reading my Bible or just being silent. I think it looks like a lot of different things for a lot of different people, and in different seasons. But I think the root idea behind a quiet time, I'm getting really philosophical here, is just that
That's great.
you're setting apart time
Yeah.
uh, to just work on your relationship with the Lord, and you like you're honoring Him, and you're being like, hey, I'm gonna spend this 45 minutes or this hour or however long that you have. And then maybe I won't get anything out of it. That's not necessarily the point. The point is more that you're setting that time apart.
Mhm.
And so that's something I try to hold to, um, and has been really fruitful in a lot of ways. Just reading my Bible and stuff. Some other things. Um, I try to take a Sabbath each week and be really intentional about that. I'll admit that the past couple of weeks have been a little bit, no, I haven't been super good at that, but I've been transitioning into this new school and stuff, so it's
Mhm.
been a little bit hectic, but it's something that I kind of rediscovered during the second school that I did with YWAM. Um, of yeah, it's coupled with just slowing down a little bit and taking time, not doing anything like work or school related, but just what you enjoy, or just reading a book, going outside, spending time with your family,
Mhm.
cooking. It can look like whatever you want, really. But I think the key for it is for it to be relaxing, and not to be. You can it looks different for everybody. And I think in the past, a lot of people have been legalistic about the idea of like no work. Like if you look at the Jews in the New Testament, but um, that is something that has really impacted me a lot. Um, in some ways, it's like a weekly quiet time, a little bit of you're setting
Mm.
apart time
Yeah.
to just enjoy life and to yeah, spend some extra time with the Lord and stuff. Um,
That's great.
yeah, so that's something I like to hold to. And just
Mm.
I try to be intentional when I listen to people. Um, making eye contact and uh, it can be hard, but like really just trying to listen well and to be in engaged. Even though maybe whatever they're talking about is boring or whatever, but it's honoring and it's loving to that person to listen to them because it's probably something that means something to them and is important. And I found that I have a lot of really good conversations because of that. Because whereas maybe you might blow a conversation or a topic off, but if you're listening and trying to be intentional about like loving the other person and being listening to them, then yeah, it can open a lot of opportunities to have good
Mm.
conversations and deep conversations and learning a lot and segue into um, yeah, I try to keep like an open mind and learn something. And just I think it's more of a posture of being like willing to recognize, and I talked about this earlier, but willing to recognize you're wrong, especially in conversation with people of like always being like,
Yeah.
oh, I wonder what this person thinks, and being willing to add their perspective to yours, or like see if yours is wrong or whatever, um, stuff like that. Yeah, yeah. So I guess those are some things that I like to
That's great.
try and
So
hold onto.
what would you say that you're passionate about?
Um, that is a tricky question. I don't really know. I think I wouldn't be able to tell you like one specific thing that I'm like properly passionate about, and I think that's something I'm trying to figure out,
Mm.
of kind of what God has put in me and what He wants me to do with my life. I think that in my mind at least relates to what I'm passionate about because I think He made us, so the things that are in our hearts and our minds are from Him as well.
Mm.
Um,
So what would you say
yeah,
passion is then?
like something you enjoy doing. It doesn't necessarily mean it has to be easy, but it brings you life when you
Mm.
when you do it. I think it maybe um, um, yeah, it's something that, like I think you can go back to. It doesn't necessarily always have to be a thing, but like poetry for me, I would say is a passion. Um,
Mm.
in that I enjoy it. It helps me to process things. It brings me joy, and just kind of a little bit of a relax in some
Mm.
senses. Um, yeah, I think that I have a passion for, um, and it's developing. It's something that I've kind of realized over the last year and a bit, just for young people, and like discipling them, which is funny. Like I did a DTS and stuff, and that kind of happened.
Yeah.
But I think it's something that the Lord has planted in me of
That's
wanting
cool.
to, yeah, just to help, especially like I mean, it's not exclusively to this, but like younger guys, like coming out of high school, and I think these days there's just so much in the world as far as options of what you do and people telling you, you know,
Yeah.
who to be, what to do, all the different things. And I think I remember for me after finishing high school, I had no clue what to do with myself. Um, I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I didn't know in a lot of ways who I was or anything. in that the school system is stupid and doesn't really work. Um, you can get me going on that. That's maybe something I'm passionate about is attempting to reform the school system at some point. But
Mm.
I think it's dumb. But to get back to what I was saying, I think that's something I'm passionate about, of like helping people figure out who they are. And I realize now that that really just looks like pointing them towards Jesus, because he's our identity in so many ways, and he can tell us who we are and what he's made us to do. Um, and just living in a life of obedience to him.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we're coming to the end here. I just want to ask one last question.
Right.
How would you define happiness?
Um,
Ended on a big one.
yeah. How would I define happiness? I don't know. I think that the world's idea of like happiness and chasing happiness is not something that um, I don't know that I strive for. I think like obviously I want to feel happy maybe, but um, how do I say things? Happiness is about how you feel, um, in the way that people talk about it. Like I feel happy, and that is not permanent in any way, and it's like it's nice, but it rarely lasts. And I'm not saying that like feeling happy is bad. I think that like God created happiness. I think um, I don't know. I'm not doing a very good job of describing what I think. Uh,
It's all right.
I think maybe I like to think of the word joy a lot more, of
Mm.
um, of being content. I think is a good word to
Yeah.
use for happiness. Of being willing to like just being like Paul says he learns to be content in every circumstance. And I think that's the goal in a lot of ways, is to be able to be in hard times and good times and happy times, sad times, um, and to be content to still be joyful. I think you can be joyful. It's a hard one. It's like really sad, but in the hard times, the joy of the Lord, and that's something that you get to choose, and that is incredible because um, you might be freaking out about something, or something sad just happened or stuff, but you can still choose in that we have this hope of a life with Jesus. You can choose to be joyful and to know that he has your back, and he loves you. He loves the people around you. He loves the people who hurt you, the people that you love. Um, and that to me is just a joyful thought. I think
That's
reminding
awesome.
myself of that. So yeah, I don't know if I have necessarily a descript like a way to describe joy, but I think contentment maybe is something there's something there.
That's
I
great.
haven't, to
Yeah.
be entirely honest, I haven't thought about it a whole bunch, but
Mm.
yeah.
That's so cool. Well,
Mm.
thank you so much for having this conversation. It was really fun. It's nice to
Yeah,
get
for sure.
to know you a
Um,
bit more and see how you think.
yeah, it was wonderful to be on, and I'd
Mm.
love to come back at some point if you have more questions.
Yeah, definitely. We'll come back and I will ask you the same question and we'll see if you have a clear
Different
answer on
answers.
happiness. Yeah, different. Yeah,
Yeah, that'd be fun. I'll think about
that'd
it
be
more.
great. Yeah,
Yeah,
do. Well,
all right.
thanks for this. It was fun.
Yeah, for sure.